Hello there, and welcome back to our lesson number 12 in this Esalen series. Throughout this whole series, we've been talking about these 5 cardinal lines of human structure that Dr. Feldenkrais speaks of and found these most important. And today, in particular, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about these 5 cardinal lines from a little bit of a different perspective. And as you see here, I don't know if you recognize this, but this is my rendition of what I call a teeter-totter, okay? A teeter-totter. And you may not know it, but your teeter-totter that are in your body, these teeter-totters are your superpower, all right? We're going to talk about the superpower that exists within you. And so we have cardinal lines, and we've talked about them being, the vertical cardinal line, the leg cardinal line, and we had 2 arm cardinal lines, right? And they were like lollipops, and these extremity lollipops fit into the vertical cardinal line. And the vertical cardinal line was not just the vertebra going up, but it also can include the ribs. And it can also include this base down here. It's called the sacrum. It's a triangle shaped base. And so when we think of a teeter-totter, we think of something that is being weighted down that will rise or lift up somewhere else in the body. All right. And this aspect of sinking down, really feeling and using the floor is the nervous system's way of reading what's available for action that will be something up above lifting. So for instance, we're going to explore how a arm can take weight into the floor and simultaneously lift the leg. Or you're going to see how a leg lifting simultaneously can change the vertical line and really hone and sink the sacrum in a way that protects the back and ultimately changes this center of mass and gets us ready for function. So again, we're going to take a look at our superpowers tonight. All right, that's inside the teeter-totter. In tonight's lesson, you're going to need some kind of device, a cushion that will raise the floor up, because we're going to spend a fair amount of time with our arms above our head. All right. Now, I should point out that when we do a movement, or you get yourself in a position and it feels good, and you start to follow my instructions, all of a sudden you might feel a very sharp stuck point. All right. Now that stuck point means that there's not enough support. Something's going to lift, but something here hasn't found the ground yet. So what we do is we lift the ground in the area that we're going to lift in order to make it easier to find something that's been missing in your anatomy, that's been missing from your teeter-totter equation, that's missing from your access to your superpower. Okay? So in the beginning here, it goes very slow and we're not lifting very high. So we've got to really find these connections that will show up in the teeter-totter, and I'll be coaching you through that. Okay? So let's come to stand for a moment. Something similar that we did in lesson 11. We just begin to stand and let your arms be placed along the sides of the torso, landing on either side of the pelvis, the thigh, and get a sense of the distance, the space that exists from one inside heel to the other heel. Your base of support is what we call this. And let's begin to start to review this motion of where we would scoop our right hand up our midline through our throat and over our head and reach up towards the ceiling. That's our reference point. But you can imagine if you were laying down, your arm would be beside you over your head, right? This is the level of my elbow, which, as you can see, is higher than my eyes. But start to notice for yourself, there's a space that exists between the arm and the head. We will be doing something that closes down that space. All right. To bring your hand down, to remember how we came down the front. Some of you will be able to come right down the side of your neck when you're on your back and then down the middle. So this is orientating yourself with nothing around you so that you can then stroke up with the left and so that you can start to find this aspect when you lay on the floor. You might notice that this arm for me has a different kind of quality going up. And I notice where my elbow is, it looks great. But if I have to lie on the floor, there's more support under me and something changes here that feels stuck. So for me, I would be putting something underneath that upper arm. And then I notice the distance, get friendly with the ear, get friendly with what we call the upper arm. Get friendly with what we call the elbow, right? And then bring that hand down. And for some of you on your back, you might have to kind of, so as though that you're brushing something along your neck. And that will allow the shoulder, the lollipop of the arm to turn in the socket, and you'll be protected, okay? Beautiful. Now, come to lie on your back. And as always, I'll highlight a couple of folks. We'll start with you lying on your back, your arms along your side, your cardinal lines of your legs extended out. Mhm. And as always, if you prefer not to be highlighted, absolutely fine. Just allow yourself to stop your video feed. Good. And a special thank you to those who allow me to videotape. I've heard from many folks who've sent me emails that says it's really helpful just to have a visual. Even though Dr. Feldenkrais says imitation is the poorest form of learning, however, it is one form of learning. And it also provides a reference. So you're lying on your back with your arms and your legs long. And for a reference point, just a couple of times, two, seriously, two meaning a couple, I would like you to lift your head up and look between your legs and sense what the quality of lifting your head from the floor as though that you could see in between your legs, and then you put it down. So you could notice your heaviness of the head. You can notice how far you lift up, what you see, and how quickly you would like to put that head down. Good. Okay. Now, begin to set your arms over your head, using one arm coming up towards the center of the vertical cardinal line over the head, extending the arm somewhere above your head. And notice your comfort level in doing that. Do you need a little support? Just maybe a little something of the elbow? Maybe it might be the whole arm. You also might notice that throughout this lesson, it can start to change and you'll need less support. And then begin to bring the other arm over the head. So your arms are resting above your head. And for right now, your legs, could you bend both legs? So the knees are bent, the feet are standing. And notice the distance between the feet that you take. Mhm. We'll be changing that distance throughout our lesson tonight, but we'll start from wherever you begin. So your arms are overhead, elbows at least above eye level. And if you can't get your arm down on the floor, that's going to be an indication, that's right, that you need a little support. We're going to start our first introduction to the teeter-totter. We're going to initiate lifting the right arm from the floor. We're going to lift it from the floor and we're going to lower it back down. Now, you're not going to lift it high. Most of us can try to lift it right away up towards the ceiling, which is a direction we're going, but not quite all at once. So now I want to start to give you some qualitative suggestions on lifting this arm. Begin first with lifting your elbow. Can you float the elbow away from the floor? Just float it away from the floor. Can I say maybe about no more than 2 inches? And notice that when you start to lift the arm, the elbow leading, can you get a sense that your elbow is bent? As I look at all of you relatively, there's a bend in your elbow as you lift, and then you lower it back down. So what I'd like you to do is lift the elbow again. And as you have this teeter-totter, the hand is actually down on the ground and the elbow is in the air. But if you begin to lift the hand from the ground and begin to almost straighten the elbow, like creeping it towards the top of your mat, you'll get a sense that the elbow and the whole upper arm can come closer to your right ear. And then you reverse it and you put the arm back on the ground again. Don't worry, I'm going to say this several times. That's better. That's it, Robin. Okay. So the teeter-totter here, the right elbow is going to lift, which then the hand starts to lift. And as the hand starts to lift, the elbow starts to straighten very slowly. And as it starts to straighten slowly, it's unbending and it comes a little closer and closer to your head, but the arm is sort of lengthening, but it's actually more creeping forward. And Dr. Feldenkrais he uses that language of creeping throughout this lesson. And then bring it back and let it go. Now, keeping your arms over your head, let your legs be long. Maybe you can start to notice, where is the teeter-totter? Where is the down part in your torso that allows the elbow to start to lift? So once again, lifting the right arm from the ground, leading with the elbow, then the hand, and then you're I hate to use the word pushing because he doesn't like that word. He likes the word inching it up, creeping it up, as though that the arm grows very long, but it grows long because it is taking its length from the elbow, and the upper arm gets even closer to your right ear. And as you do that a couple of times, can you start to get a sense that there's something in that right upper shoulder blade, maybe the ribs, maybe there's something in the pelvis that allows that action to happen? So we're thinking of more of a lift without a push or growing long, but that's the impact it has on the body. It's almost like the arm levitates from the ground. Good. Now, we're going to let that go. And as you slowly bring your hands down, if you bring your right hand near your cheek or your head, top of your head, near the right side of your cheek, along your right side of your neck and of your breastbone, it'll feel more acceptable to bring the arm down by your side. And of course, bring the left arm down too. We do this slowly because when your arms are up above you like that and you start to come down and you haven't accessed your superpower here of the teeter-totter, it can be quite painful. It can be an impingement. Now, leave your arms resting at your side for a moment and let yourself be drawn to the left cardinal line of the leg, the left leg. Mhm. Now, again, it's going to be slowly. And I want you to track several places in your body. We're going to be lifting this leg, oh, probably maybe only an inch, because I want you to start to attend to two areas. The first area is the leg's going to stay relatively straight. You're going to lift it up and see whether or not when you lift that leg, does the leg have a propensity to bend at the knee and then the heel lift? Or does the heel lift and then the knee straighten? Which is it? So the left leg, once or twice, relatively, you're just hovering the lower leg and then you come back. Just two, that's fine. Okay, pause. And let the weight be given to the floor for a little support. And see if it is the knee that bends first. Try it that way. Just try to bend the knee and then just a skosh and then try to lift. Does that change the weightedness of the leg? Or could you allow the knee, like the elbow, to be just a little straighter and then begin to lift the leg? So it's like the heel comes off first. Not so high, not so high. Good. Pause. So now let's see if we can sense this teeter-totter of the vertical cardinal line and the role it has in being able to lift the leg. This time I want you to pay attention to the triangle bone at the base of the spine, the sacrum. And do you have a sense when you lift that left leg that there's more weightedness on the left side of the triangle bone or the right side? Now, some of you are not used to sensing yourself from the back, letting the sacrum roll like that. What you might feel is that your lower abdomen or the pelvis starts to turn towards that lifting leg. So it's like your whole lower abdomen, your pelvis turns towards the lifting leg. If it is, then what's happening is so too is the sacrum going in that direction. Good. I'll stop for a moment. Now, straight leg raising is given a lot in rehabilitation, but the quality of being able to lift your leg up from the ground can really signal whether or not you're going to have a leg to stand on or that you're going to get excessive rotation into your low back, the lumbar spine, or a sacrum that's already torqued. Now, what happens if I have you bend the right knee, stand the right foot? And once again, begin to lift, levitate that left leg from the ground? Is it easier to lift the heel first and not bend the knee? Did it get lighter or heavier once we changed the other leg? All right, stop. Does it become clear to you that maybe the pelvis or the sacrum turns less as that leg is lifting, staying more in the middle? So keep the right knee bent and change the distance between your space between your right foot and your left leg. Bring it very close together, very close together. Mhm. As though that you are bringing your cardinal lines of the leg under that vertical cardinal line. Does that change the heaviness of the left leg? Can you allow the knee more or less not so much to bend, but the leg creeps a little longer, if you will, so that the heel raises and that there's less turn of the pelvis rolling towards that lifting left leg. There's less weightedness off to the left of the sacrum. Good. Now let that go. Let's see what happens with the weight of the left leg as we bring both arms overhead. So sweep them up through the midline, find that resting place again. We're just resting them on the ground. We're not going to be lifting just yet. That's right. It's a very kind thing that you're doing, how you are lifting. And bend the right knee and make sure that the right foot and the left long leg are almost connected together. You've taken on a very narrow base of support. And begin here to creep the left leg and allow it to levitate and lift. So the knee relatively is not going to bend. The knee almost straightens as you begin to do a straight leg raise. Mhm. And feel for you, does that change the difference of the heaviness of the left leg? Quality of the teeter-totter? What parts of you now take place in the sinking so that the left leg lifts without much of a knee bend at all? Mhm. Right. Now stop. Now begin to creep, if you will. Come back to the arms above your head and begin to creep the right arm and lift it up. So again, that creeping, remember how we led with the elbow and it straightened and the arm lifts. Refresh yourself to make sure that's clean, that's clear. And you might get a sense that it's feels like that arm is even lighter now and actually for some strange reason is easier to lift from the ground. It's like it lost weight. Keep it close to the head. That's right. Coming close to that vertical cardinal line. And can you begin to do both movements at the same time? The creeping of the right arm and the left leg, and then lower down. Feel how the inside edge of that left leg runs along your lower right leg. So I've got a very narrow base. The right knee is bent. It's standing. And see if there's a difference. As you creep the right arm, you creep the left leg. Good. Which leads it first? Can you tell if the elbow and the arm creep and then the leg lift, or are you someone who does the leg, then the elbow? Sometimes it's actually very hard to tell unless you monitor which one comes to the floor first. That which is coming to the floor first is the one that has lifted first. Mm-hmm. Good, good. Now, let that go and bring your hands down, your legs long. Notice if the sacrum itself, that weightedness of the bony pelvis, is changing its shape into the floor. Let's try one more combination, and then this is a lesson tonight that we will be doing both sides. We will be doing both sides. So once again, bring the arms up overhead, setting above your head. Bend the right knee, left leg long. You have a narrow base of support, not much space. That's right. So twice begin to lift the right arm and the left leg together and have that intention that just think about it, that they both could touch one another. They're both levitating off the ground and that they would come and they would make their way towards touching. You don't have to go there just yet. Good. All right. And now let's try another organization pattern. Can you begin to lift that left leg and also lift the head as though that you could see the leg or pass the leg? Leave the arm on your pillow on the floor and lower it down. Or only do two, head and leg, head and left leg. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, can you creep the right arm long? Creep the right arm long. Feel how it connects to the head. Can you lift the arm, the head, and the left leg? Two, no more than three times. There you go. And then maybe once or twice, do that again and let your left hand support your head so that it also can carry you up. So creep the arm first. Fine, there you go. And then lift. That's it. The left hand helping the head, the right arm and the left leg floating. Good. Sometimes it's helpful to breathe out during this. Awesome. Good. Now let it go. Release your hands from being overhead, down through the middle. Release your legs. And we're just going to keep the legs long and we're going to bring our arms over the head. Let them over the head. That's right. And we're just going to start to lift that left arm like we did the right. And we're really going to let that left arm creep forward to the top of your mat. So you want to make sure that the elbow is going to lift first, and then it's actually straightening. It's the straightening of the elbow that allows the hand to creep towards the top of the mat, and the hand and the lower arm begin to lift off. And that space between your upper arm and your ear get narrow. It's like you come as close to the side of your ear, not your cheek, but aside to your ear as much as possible. Mhm. Noticing how the arm is lifting. Where's the teeter-totter? Where's the downward pressure that actually lifts that arm? Are you taking it from your head? And now, if you begin to bend your right leg. Mhm. And you begin to creep that left arm, creep the left arm. Is that helpful? Change over legs. Let the right leg be long and the left leg be bent. Does that improve the quality of the lifting of your left arm from the ground? Mhm. Now leave the arm, set it over the head, and let's see what it's like lifting this right leg from the ground. The leg is straight, and begin to let the right leg levitate off of the ground. And notice if this is the first thing, it's so seductive. Can you feel it? Does the knee bend and then the leg lift? Or does the heel and the lower leg lift, which kind of straightens the knee a little bit? Sometimes, just like the elbow, the knee wants to bend right away, but if we let the leg creep down to the end of the mat, that means that you straighten the knee relatively, right, as you lift the leg. And can it be really close to your standing lower leg? Can you feel how the lifting of that starts to have a different response in the pelvis turning? Last one. Now keep your arms above your head. Lower your left leg down. Let there be a little space in between those legs. Now begin to track your pelvis. Lift that right leg. And does your pelvis turn, the front of your pelvis, is it turning toward the lifting right leg or away from it? Can you feel how clearly it turns toward it, doesn't it? You can feel how the weightedness of the sacrum, for some, just even get more exaggerated. Now, bend that left knee, stand the foot, close the space between the leg and the foot. Bring your right leg closer to the left foot closer, and a couple of times begin to creep the left arm and the right leg simultaneously, both of them. Who's leading the motion? Once, try the arm creeping, then leg creeping, then arm. And then leave the arm and lift the leg in the head. Lift that right leg in the head. How far can you lift from the ground? What's going down into the ground to happen? Where's the down of the teeter-totter if the head and the leg are the lifter? And now connect that left arm and head and leg. Lift all three. The left arm creeps right close to the left ear. Let the right hand come behind the skull and give some assistance of lifting the head. Just 2 more times. Creep and then lift. Creep and then lift. Now, let it all go. And roll on your side. So often when we go to lift our arms and legs, our mind thinks about our hands and our feet as the reference point. And we lift these limbs to overcome gravity. But if we can start to feel where on our back side, through our ribs, through our sacrum, where along our vertical line can we make adjustments as though that those places act like a hinge and can lever up these long arms and legs? Now, roll back onto your back. Set your left hand overhead and the left leg long, bending the right knee. Narrow that space between your thigh and your leg. Because here's another cue of there's something with about that right foot, your footprint that helps. So can you begin to creep that left hand and creep the left leg at the same time and begin to lift those together? And continue in, you set in motion the creeping of the arm and the leg. And can you use the downward teeter-totter to bring that left hand to touch somewhere on the left leg and the left leg up to meet that hand? Mm-hmm. Good. There you go. And what if you put your right hand behind your skull so that you could lift your head and the leg and the arm, left, left, and skull? That's right. Does it become more clear now where the fulcrum of the teeter-totter is to lift that? Good. Now, lower that down. Bring your hands down by your side. Bring your legs long. And a couple of times, just lift your head up and look between your legs and see if that initial reference test, is that any easier? What does that mean? Easier, smoother? Do you cover more distance? Is it clearer for you how there's something going on pressing down into the floor, something within the belly? And a couple of times, put your hands behind your head and lift your head in the direction of your feet. Good. Let that go. Now we're going to keep our legs long. Set your arms above your head. This time we're going to creep both arms at the same time. We're going to creep both arms at the same time. Elbows will be lifting. You can do one, then the other, but maybe you could do them both at the same time until the space between your upper arm and your ear disappears. And you can somehow, to the best of your ability, connect your arms to your head and lift both arms and head from the floor. Levitate your arms and your head from the floor. But watch with the creeping first. Can you set the motion of lifting with the creeping of both arms long? Good. All right. Let that go. Keep the arms above the head. Both legs are long here. Now, I only want you to do this once or twice, but just see what your capacity is to lift right leg long, left leg, or both legs. We're all different here, but notice the leg lifting with the minimal movement of the pelvis turning. Okay. Now, I want to see if this is helpful. What if you, with the legs long, can you really narrow this space that's between your legs, the upper thighs, the lower? Does that have any influence? Where's your teeter-totter? Do your knees, can they move from that bent? It's not very high. Can let them be long. There's the creep. That's it. That's better. That's a better creep. Good. Now let it go. Bring your arms down by your side, through the head, very respectfully. And you can lie with your legs long or your knees bent or on your side. Now bring your arms above your head again. Set your arms. Bend the right knee. And begin to creep the right arm and the left leg. Begin to creep them very long. And as you begin to creep them both, there'll be a time when the left leg can rise up to meet the arm and the arm can rise up to meet the leg, and that you could tap somewhere along that leg, and then you could lower it back down. And as you lower it back down, go slow. Feel how you have to use the fulcrum on the floor, the fulcrum in the bottom of the foot, the fulcrum in the opposite shoulder blade. How does that help you? Tap 2 more times. The right arm to the left leg. Tap behind the knee, the thigh. Tap behind it. There you go. Go behind it. Yeah, good. And then the next time you find an arm and leg on the ground, pause, switch over your legs. And begin to creep this diagonal, allowing the right leg to creep long, the left arm to be able to creep. You know how the belly not only contracts there, it's not just around the navel, but it's a little bit lower than that. Feel where in the ribs can support you. And feel how it's the creeping of the arm that initiates the lightness of the leg. The creeping of the arm. Let the arm creep and boom, Fly that left leg up. Mhm. Good. And the next time that left arm comes up, creep it in such a way that it connects to the head and lift the head and the left arm and the right leg. Let the head come with it and tap, tap behind. If you need the support of your right hand behind your head to help lift, that's okay. Feel how that changes what you do through the shoulder girdle and the upper ribs. Ah, good. Let it go. Bring your arms down. Rest. Now, bend both knees. It's a fairly narrow base of support. This lesson is about really activating a new relationship of the arms and the legs to the vertical cardinal line, using the teeter-totter to release any of these old holdings of how you would use yourself. And initiating through your feet, begin to press both feet simultaneously down and lift the pelvis as though that you could let your pelvis and your lower body lift up, and that the bridge of the pubic bone lifts in the direction of the ceiling and your groin unhinges. Mhm. And then as you lower yourself down by changing the amount of pressure underneath the feet. Mhm. And this next time when you are elevated in the air with your pelvis, stay there. If you find your feet slipping, then you need to make sure you have some good traction. And then alternate, if you will, lifting one heel, then the other heel, just symbolically, lifting one side, then the other. And feel how you can keep your pelvis relatively level with that motion. They're not really turning. Good. And then let that go. Bring your pelvis down. Let your legs be long. Set your arms above your head. And begin to get a read. How heavy is the left leg feel? When I ask you to begin to creep the right arm long, the elbow's going to lift, then the hand lifts. Feel that initial movement, how much smoother it is. And then begin to see if that left leg can just rise up to meet the arm, and the arm rises up to meet the leg with the least amount of pelvis turning. If you have a lot of the pelvis turning towards the direction of that lifting leg, then you are someone who's going to need to either bring the right leg very close to the left, narrow that base of space of support, feel how the back of the right heel can help you float the leg, but it's really that's it, the creeping of the arm. We get so enamored about touching the leg, that we forget about the quality of the creep. That's it, Lindsay. The quality of the creeping of the right arm getting long, then lifting, and start to switch it over. Maybe creep now the left elbow. And you know that means lifting the elbow from the ground, that lifts the hand, that narrows the space, that lifts the leg. That's right. And lowering down, where can you find a little bit more help? And then switch over, creep the right arm and the left leg. Really attending to this quality of the pelvis turning. That's so much better. There you go. One last time. Good. And then lie with your legs long. Bring your hands down that respectful way. I assure you, it only takes one time just to bring your hand down in a way that pinches the shoulder, and you'll be reminded that you have options. Now, let's just take a look at our reference test and lift your head, and let's see what your teeter-totter is like. How much of yourself reaches down into the ground to see below your feet. Mhm. The smoothness, the ease. Good. Now set your right arm above your head, bend the left knee, stand. And as you begin this next time to creep the right arm long, begin to push with the left foot and roll over onto your right side, sweeping your left hand across, and you'll lie on the left side. Roll long. There you go. That's it. Be pulled over. And then from this lying on the right side, begin to bring yourself up off this ground. Feel how, can you do it with your eyes closed? And can you really feel how you could use the floor in some way to make you light enough to come up? So as you rise up, there's a teeter-totter view has to push down. That's right. The hands will push that lift the pelvis. There'll be a time where a foot will push to raise the mass. A hand will push to draw up the other foot to standing. What is it for you? Arrive in that standing position with your arms down by your side. Notice the base of support that you take, and begin to set the right hand over the top of your head. Can you begin to grow long, letting that arm get closer to the ear? And as you do that, as you let it grow long, which leg could grow light? So let your arm really reach up to the ceiling, which is the same thing, right? As creeping up to the top of your mat. And can you begin to use the left leg in such a way that you could start to swing the left leg forward and back? Just forward and back. That's right. Just forward and back. There you go. It's a little bit more of a challenge, obviously. There you go. Good. Now let it go and let yourself just walk around. Find that you can eventually bring yourself back to our group, back into our private Zoom room. Yeah, good. So, although this is lesson number 12 in our series, the original lesson from the Feldenkrais method is actually lesson 41. And it's called Thorax and Back in the original Esalen series. And I haven't decided on my name yet. I'm thinking about creepy lifting, adjusting your center of mass, because he loves this word creeping. He really did. And he was very specific about it. So creepy lifting. The other one was about teeter-totters, your body's superpower. So I think that we use the teeter-totter and we use this marriage of this creeping lifting to start to activate that teeter-totter that exists within your system. So I think I'm going with creepy lifting. I saw a lot of thumbs up on that one. That would get somebody's attention, Should have done this around Halloween, but all right, good. All right, any thoughts or questions or ahas for you? I was particularly curious if we could connect that creeping of the arm and what that did in the standing with the left leg. Or whatever you'd like to share. Miss Heather, I see.
Hi. Yeah, it did take me a long time to get the idea of what it meant with creeping the leg, stretching the leg out. So that was useful when I did get it, because I was doing the arm, but I was just lifting the leg. So that was good. When you had said move the leg closer if your pelvis is moving, it ended up at the very end being really useful for me because particularly if both legs are going up, I have this thing in my right groin where it goes click. There's a click. And so I thought, and I've been told that is a really bad thing. Avoid that at all costs. So when you then said move, I end up moving the left leg so close. I went over the meridian, the line, middle line. And then I was able to do it with the right leg without that going click, 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 so anyway, very cool with that idea that then I don't have to just leave it so that it's not, just dormant all the time.
Exactly. And I concur with someone who told you, listen, that click, click, you don't want that. However, they don't tell you, well, what can I do to change that? So
Yes.
I don't have that, right? Because it's the quality of being able to move that leg and make it light. What that is telling us is that there's something in that lower pelvis that's not organized. Something within the lower abdominals is not organized, is not being turned on. And it's not being turned on because there's something within this cardinal line that's on this bottom, like to really take the weight that could lift it. And so anytime, and this is just a beautiful something that if we all could remember, whenever we bring that narrow base of support, even laying on our back as close to the midline as possible, it becomes lighter. The lever arm is not as heavy. So we're used to, holding something here in our hand and then it goes out and it becomes heavier, right? But the same thing happens here if you're out kind of spread out to the side or abducted. Anytime that we can start to come towards this center, we become the nervous system believes that it's a lighter leg. All right. And so if it's a lighter leg, then you're not overwhelming the system with too much resistance. And it says, oh, okay, we're going to find how you're going to sink in the sacrum. And you'll notice if you pay attention in this lesson again and again, you'll notice that as you start to come into that midline, so too does this change in the sacrum. And you begin to drop differently in the sacrum. And old organizations around the sacrum, the low back, and the arm have to start to change up. They change the
cool.
relationship.
Cool.
It's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
But it's the creeping that gets you there that allows you to change the line. So in this original lesson, he doesn't say anything about narrowing this space. Either he says it between the arms, the arm lines, but he doesn't say anything about the legs. And, again, he's teaching to a population, I think, that had more availability of function and maybe strength and mobility than like we do right now today. So I focus on being able to make it possible and showing people if you just bring this closer together, then what happens? You then start to set in motion just these normal neural patterns or kinetic chain of movement that allows you to stand on one leg. And I was pleasantly surprised when I was doing this lesson, and all of a sudden I go, oh my God, that leg is so light. It just flew up, and it scared me at first because it was the leg that I had my total hip on and had changed its mechanics. And it was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This
Wow.
brilliant. So,
when you say that,
whoops, you froze just a moment. So maybe you're going to come back, Heather. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I'm going to go on to Madeline, and then maybe when Heather comes back, well, she had a comment. So go ahead, Madeline.
That was amazing. That was a perfect example of one of those lessons where you think, there's no way I'm going to be able to touch my leg. But what really was highlighted for me was the diagonal relationship between one arm and one. When I was creeping the right and creeping the left arm and the right leg, to get those two away from each other on that diagonal, more or less, was almost impossible because I'm very contracted on the right side. So it really highlighted that organization for me. And I had to really just slow it down and just creep, okay, the leg, because the minute I lengthened my left arm, my right leg started to pull up. It started to shorten. So I went, okay, how can I get it long? And then, yeah, really, I could not stand on one leg at this. So I need to do this lesson again and again and again. But thank you. That was brilliant, really brilliant.
It really is a good one. And just a couple of pointers to kind of help make it even more possible for you. So, you know how you give your support, right? You give your support underneath that arm. Well, you could, so you would be someone who, I would say, now this is a little too thick, right? But you could take a towel and you could fold it and you could put it under the upper leg and into the pelvis, and it would start to really raise the floor from there and then make it much more cleaner and clearer. And then it would target that old thoracic what that you've been looking for a long time. So it's okay to raise the floor from the bottom up instead of just the arm. Sometimes I think we need both, and especially let that signaling of that kind of pull or that contraction be helpful to you. All right.
Yeah. I just want to make one other point. I emailed you, and I don't know if you got my email, but when we did that long, deep breath in last week's lesson, I suddenly felt myself being pulled so strongly to the right. I mean, it was like I took a deep breath and my whole body went whoop during the breath. Yeah. So that's definitely something about, which side is moving and which side isn't. I'm still working on that one too, but I think it relates to what we're talking about now.
Mhm. I do too. I do too. I do too. And I'll look to see about that email. Usually I'm pretty good at that, but I did not see that. So I'll resend.
Okay, all right, I will.
Resend. There was one other thing. Heather's coming back. Okay. You had a comment that you wanted to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah. I just, just in terms of your title, because you mentioned buoyant, and I was just wondering about exploring the creeping buoyancy of stretch, because I think stretch is part of it. But because buoyancy and exploring kind of takes you there.
That word signals something for me, and for you too, Madeline. One of the things that he said in this lesson, he says, now, wait a minute, folks, it's not about, there is a diagonal for sure, but it's not like that one lesson that we did when we took the foot and the hand away from one another way early on. These are not about, it's not about pushing. It's not about lengthening across the diagonal. And the diagonal, when we think about the diagonal, it's like the right hip and the right hip and the left shoulder, across the torso diagonal. What he's getting at, and maybe this might be helpful, there's something about coming along the side. It's the side of the torso that gets long. So that he always starts with the creeping of the arm first, because that's what's in function. That's what sets us up to stand on that leg. And it's that opposite leg. I'm creeping with my left hand here. As I creep with my left hand, it should signal that the right leg can become like the kicking ball leg, or that lifting the leg. All right. So this has its roots in organizing the spine, or that vertical cardinal line, not really across the diagonal. You can do anything. Once you get that line, then you could do anything with the arm and the leg. So don't let it be, don't translate creeping. That's it. Don't translate creeping into a stretch, and don't translate it into a diagonal. It just happens to be free to move. All right.
I have to practice it to get that sensation in my leg, like I my arm. I just it didn't come. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a sweet one when you get it.
Lengthening. The arm is lengthening. It's lengthening. It's not, isn't it? The arm is lengthening.
Sorta. It does look like sorta. It's getting long. So there's two things that's happening. This is my right arm. Okay. So what the thing that he's restoring here is that when it's above my head and I start to lift the elbow from the ground, and then I lift the hand, it's what he's looking for is this. It looks like it's getting long, but it's actually getting connected to the midline of the body, which is a very different mindset up here for folks who've had trauma to a shoulder and to coming toward the midline, and for balance and so many other things. At the same time, when you lift the elbow, then you lift the hand, you begin to get this upward rotation. And that is powerful. And once again, you're bringing this whole cardinal line of a lollipop in toward the vertical line. It's almost like simultaneously they're becoming a certain level of resonance or harmony. And it's like it's signaling there's going to be a down available once you overcome gravity. Beautiful. Just a little linguistic, maybe, cleaning up our language and the possibility, I think. And as you read its original form, and there's so many other different things that you could go with this lesson after you get the movement. So, all right, Miss Tony.
So it's in my body, I felt it was all a narrowing. Yes. So as the arm goes up and the legs go out, there's length there, but everything goes in. So the pubic bones and even the shoulder blades.
Yes.
And instead of using the abdominals, you drop down into the sacrum as everything narrows
Yes.
to create the movement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
my,
because it's
that
a
is my,
new way to move.
yeah, that's my current understanding and realization of it. And then you think about it, when you are more organized around a line, my goodness, you don't have to use and expend as much energy.
Yeah, so I could literally feel my sit bones go inward
Yes.
and my shoulder, everything just went in
Yes.
in order to go out and up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, just checking. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is. Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Mhm. All right, Miss Robin.
If you notice soccer players, very often they are on one leg and one hand up kicking a lot of times. And because I'm just thinking about this now, I never made the connection as to why. But even in martial arts, it's the same thing. If I'm going to kick my right foot up, my left hand comes up and my left leg pushes down and the leg comes up.
Yeah.
It's like the same side. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mhm, mhm.
The mechanics.
Yeah.
It's
In-
no wonder that Dr. Feldenkrais like martial arts.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the martial arts, you know, that came first, and then his language of how to help people, right? Ready themselves for action, ready themselves for life, you know. He talks about you don't necessarily have to hit or bite or run or do something. You just have to be able to do it. And so his world was coming from survival. I mean, literally a threat of his entire being. So when you mobilize for a sense of safety, but not such a sense of hyper alertness and compulsion. And that's what he really wanted to express, that we could be more free than we could ever imagine. And having that freedom, then we can be more responsive. And then we influence our choice. And then that changes the quality of our experience of life on the planet for as long as we live. So.
But even even at fighting, if you're fighting in martial arts, you have to be relaxed and calm. You won't be able to succeed.
That's right.
Yeah.
That makes sense to
Yeah.
me. Well, you won't
Yeah.
have as many of options. You won't be able to
Correct.
respond
Correct.
to
Yeah.
what is needed and
Mm.
do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great class. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. This arm going up, I wanted to say, some of you have done hand up the wall. It's in the Gate for Wild Human Potential. So I've always used hand up the wall to get a sense as an assessment for me when I work on someone, just to kind of get a sense of where do they hold their center of mass and what is the nervous system's predetermined way of moving, you know, because you certainly can lift an arm up and stay equally on both feet. You don't have to change the imprint. But I'm looking at how their movements are possible or not. And so when I did this lesson and laying on the back and that surprise of this length of creeping that gave me, like you said, Tony, this narrowness, and the other leg just flew up. I knew in that moment that is hand up the wall. That is being able to stand and kick a ball and do something. They're all the same thing. They're all the same thing, mobilizing. So one is just horizontal, and then you come up into vertical, and then you put in movement with it, and then it's balance. Brilliant lesson here. This one worth your time to review. All right. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of the evening. All right. We'll see you next week. All righty. Bye-bye.